Okay, Vincent, think. You did a couple of superhero flicks, and then you did a 90s fantasy drama. What should you tackle next? Jesus?
Yes, my child. It is I.
My mind is blown. What are you doing here?
I have come here to ask you to review a specific film.
Of course I will. Just name the movie and it's done.
Review for me. God's Not Dead.
God's Not Dead? But why that film?
Why do you have misgivings?
Well, the movie already kind of did its rounds on YouTube several years back, so I'm just curious as to why you want me to delve into this film now.
It's not for me, my son. It's for you.
For me? What do you mean?
Well, you've always wanted to watch it for yourself, haven't you?
Well, yes.
And if you watched it, you always told yourself you would review it, yes?
Well, yeah, I guess, if I'm being honest, I've always wanted to scratch that itch.
Then do it. Indulge yourself. Give in to your temptation.
Well, I mean, if you say I should, then I suppose. Wait a second. Giving in to temptation? That doesn't sound like you, Jesus.
Nah, dude. That's totally a classic Jesus line.
Wait a damn minute. Is that you, Satan?
No. What?
Satan?
Okay, you got me.
Man, what an ass you are. Do you really think that's the kind of content I want to make on this channel? That I'm just gonna, review movies that have been popular to review and break down and mock? Is that the kind of guy you think I am?
You did back-to-back in-depth reviews of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
Crap. Just give me the movie. So in all seriousness, I've always wanted to watch this film for myself. However, when I started this channel, I actually had no intentions of doing a review for it because, well, it was no longer that relevant. However, I then received a sign from above. David A.R. White, who is the co-founder and face of PureFlix Entertainment, the company that made the film, announced a few months ago that they would be making a fourth installment entitled God's Not Dead, We the People. So I figured if they're going to continue on with this, why not finally scratch that itch? So starting with the basics, God's Not Dead is directed by Harold Kronk and written by Hunter Dennis, Chuck Konzelman, and Carrie Solomon. It stars Shane Harper as Josh Wheaton, insert joke here, alongside Kevin Sorbo playing the antagonist, Professor Radisson, and David A.R. White as Reverend Dave. Yeah, when I said David A.R. White was the face of PureFlix Entertainment, I wasn't kidding. He often stars, or at least co-stars, in a lot of their film or TV productions, which makes him look a bit egotistical. Anyway, back to this film. Josh is a Christian, and on his very first day of college, his philosophy professor has his entire class sign these papers saying that God is dead, meaning that God never really existed. But being a Christian, this goes against Josh's beliefs, and he refuses to sign the paper. So Professor Radisson gives him a challenge, that he will get the ending of the next 3 classes to convince his fellow classmates that God does exist. But if he fails to convince the majority of them, he'll flunk the class. There are also a bunch of subplots, and we'll get to them in varying degrees, but let's stick to some of the main stuff first. First off, this premise is ridiculous. Josh is the only student in this class to protest this, and apparently Professor Radisson is known for pulling this crap.
You might want to think about a different instructor.
Gus?
Let's just say you're wandering into the snake pit.
Even in pre-social media days, there would have been a flood of complaints sent to this university about Professor Radisson's anti-Christian tactics. But that's enough of Professor Radisson for now. We'll definitely get back to him. But we gotta talk about our protagonist, Josh Whedon. Josh is a Christian, but he's also a Christian. And another bit of interesting trivia is, he's a Christian. That's the problem with Josh. All he is a Christian. And the only thing you can really say about his character is that he has faith. And that kind of makes him dull and uninteresting. The closest thing he has to a character arc is the moment when he has to decide to either take on Radisson's challenge and prove him wrong, or just drop the class and move on.
I could sign the paper saying something I don't believe. Yeah, or I could commit academic suicide in front of a live audience by trying to prove that God exists.
What the filmmakers seem to be trying to do is to give Josh a flat character arc, which can be a little more challenging than your normal character arc. Your normal character arc, the character believes something that is untrue about himself or about the world, and then by the end of the story, they change and they are a better person, because now they believe in the truth and not the lie that they had held before. With flat character arcs, it's not so much that the character changes, but they change the people or the world around them. An example would be Tom Hanks's Forrest Gump. Forrest impacts the lives of everyone he meets throughout his life and in some way helps them to be better, or at least have a better life. The difference between Josh and Forrest is that, well, Forrest actually has layers to his character that make him interesting and likable. He's a Southern man, naturally athletic, extremely loyal, unconditionally loves Jenny, and when he works at something, he gives it his full effort. Josh, I don't know what else to say about him, except for he might be weirdly arrogant?
I feel like God wants someone to defend him.
Really, Josh? God needs you to defend him? God, the Almighty, the Father of heaven and earth, the Almighty above all almighties, needs you to defend him. No, Josh. No. Also, he is apparently the type of person to bet against the odds.
How many people in that class?
80, maybe.
And how many of them do you think would ever step foot in here or any other church for that matter?
Well, none, probably.
Josh, if you really think those are the odds, then never go to Vegas, my friend. Anyway, let's move on to our antagonist, the unbelievable Professor Radisson. Almost immediately, he is feeding his students and the audience his very apparent bias.
Philosophers, poets, scientists, authors, towering intellects, all of them. But what do they all have in common? Well, they are atheists.
Much like Josh, this character has almost no layers, which gets really annoying when neither your main character or the antagonist has no layers. So it's just really hurting me watching these two characters go at it. But he's just so unbelievably sinister. He takes this sick pleasure out of belittling Josh at every turn.
Now, don't worry. You can still go back to your dorm room and sink to your knees and pray at your bedside if you'd like. Previously announced, I will be turning the podium over to Mr. Wheaton, who will be presenting his case in favor of a supreme celestial dictator, otherwise known as God.
Come on, Mina. This is fun for me. I can't help it if the boy wants to make a fool out of himself and commit academic suicide.
Not only is he a mean-spirited, belittling jackass, but also all his friends are too.
It tastes like it was sunning in a moldy basement.
Talk about your grapes of wrath.
Looks like it's Greek to her.
Yeah, so all his friends are also atheist teachers that work at the school. Is the movie trying to send the message that all academic types are snobbish atheists? Because that's a hell of a generalization. And of course, Radisson is horrible to his live-in girlfriend, Mina.
Mina, this wine is awful. All right. You've been reading again, haven't you?
You know I'm a Christian. You knew that when you first started seeing me.
Yes, and you know that I'm not. And there's only room in this relationship for two, which means I don't get a mistress and you don't get to drag a 2,000-year-old dead carpenter turned itinerant rabbi into our lives.
Speaking of Mina, let's talk about her and the subplots of the film that have this 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon-style connection throughout them, kinda. So Mina is dating Radisson, and their relationship is falling apart. By the way, they met because she is a former student of his. Real classy there, dude. Anyway, Mina's mother has declining mental health, so she is trying to get her brother, Mark, to visit. But he is unnervingly apathetic and only gives people the time of day if they meet his wants. No joking here, Mark is a worse person than Radisson. He has a girlfriend named Amy, who is a liberal journalist and loves to take down Christians for some reason, including the Robertsons from Duck Dynasty. But she finds out she has cancer, tells Mark at dinner, and he breaks up with her because it kills his good mood. This character is a sociopath! Anyway, then you have the last 2 subplots that aren't stringed to the other ones. There is Martin, a Chinese classmate of Josh's, who is literally just there to be converted by Josh. Reverend Dave and Jude, who keep having car troubles. And Aisha, a young Muslim woman who is secretly Christian. When her father finds out, he cracks her across the face twice and throws her out of their home. Damn! Considering Aisha and her family are the only group representing a different religion in this film, to have her father come off so cold and violent, well, it makes the filmmaker seem, we'll say, not all that respectful to other faiths, at least in my eyes. With that out of the way, let's get to Josh's arguments that are in favor of God existing.
Atheists say that no one can prove the existence of God, and they're right. But I say no one can disprove that God exists.
Which he is, technically not wrong. There is no definite proof that God does exist or doesn't exist. However, the problem with that is that's not what Josh is supposed to be doing here. He's supposed to prove that God exists. He's not here to show us that it's possible. He's here to show us that it is a definite. And for this being his first session, so he doesn't flunk and, so he can beat Radisson, it's not exactly the best place to jump off from. He then moves on to the theory of the Big Bang, the event that supposedly gave birth to the entire universe. According to Josh, the event is just too random, that this one singular event just came out of nowhere and gave birth to the universe. But it actually had to have been God that caused the Big Bang to set everything into motion. Unfortunately, Radisson uses a quote from Stephen Hawking to completely shut this down.
Because there's a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. Spontaneous creation is the reason there is something instead of nothing. Why the universe exists, why we exist. It's not necessary to invoke God to set the universe in motion.
So after his first session to prove God exists, Josh, he got a beat down from Radisson, which then leads to probably one of the most infamous scenes in the whole movie.
Do you think you're smarter than me, Wheaton? Do you think there's any argument you can make that I won't have an answer for?
Yeah. See why that's so infamous? Josh is the one who just got embarrassed, but Radisson is acting like he's the one that got embarrassed. And it just furthers this idea that Radisson's this mustache-twirling villain. I'm just like, am I supposed to take this guy seriously? Session 2. Josh counters back at Radisson by quoting John Lennox, a professor of mathematics and philosophy, who disagrees with Hawking's theory. He then quotes Hawkins, who said philosophy is dead, which is an obvious jab at Radisson, and also an unintentional jab at Lennox, who Josh just quoted. This tactic does appear to win him some points with his fellow students, who, once again, are the judges of this whole thing. They will vote at the end to decide whether God is dead or not. After class, Radisson once again confronts Josh. Not in a violent way this time, but in a way that actually adds a layer to his character.
When a 12-year-old watches his mother dying of cancer, it's only natural to beg God for her life. You will find the most committed atheists were once Christians, but we took the blinders off. We saw the world for what it truly is.
Yes, Radisson has a vendetta against God, which, in a better written film, maybe this could work, but it just seems like another easy way to paint Radisson as this angry, maniacal man, and an easy setup for Josh to take him out later. In the third and final session, Radisson changes the format to a debate format. He does this because Mina broke up with him, and he's angry and wants to take it out on Josh. I'm proud of you, Mina. You go live that better life. Anyway, Josh makes the argument that morality is inherently connected to God, to which Radisson responds,
Right and wrong is a straight line that leads directly back to God.
So you're saying that we need a God to be moral, that a moral atheist is an impossibility.
And then Josh goes for the jugular.
It's a very simple question, Professor. Why do you hate God?
Because he took everything away from me. Yes, I hate God. All I have for him is hate.
How can you hate someone if they don't exist?
So the class votes, and everyone but 2 students declare that God's not dead. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those students voted for Josh just as a way to burn their piece of crap professor. And herein lies the problem with God's not dead. Josh doesn't prove that God exists. He only reveals the truth about Radisson, that he does believe in God, and he's just angry at God because his mother died. He's not even a real atheist. The movie is trying to push a message that atheists are just angry people who hate God, which is completely stupid because that's not what an atheist is. An atheist is someone who doesn't believe in God. You can't hate someone if you don't believe they exist. If they believe in God, then they're not an atheist. They're something else altogether. PureFlix is just spreading lies in this film. Finally, the various Christian characters throughout the film all end up at the Newsboys concert, and they're all having a good time. However, Radisson realizes that he's a horrible person and he should probably go apologize to Mina, which he goes to do, but then he gets hit by a car. Reverend Dave and Jude just happen to be there. They convert him to Christianity at the last minute before he dies a painful death. I guess because that's more dramatic instead of him just converting? I guess? This movie ends on a very happy and joyful tone, despite the fact that we just watched a guy die in the street. In conclusion, this film is poorly written, highly biased, and is just a bullcrap fest, and yet it's gotten multiple sequels, with, once again, another one on the way at the time of this recording. This movie just wants to paint this black and white view of the world, that there's this way, and then there's the other way. One's good, one's bad. You're either over here, or you're over there. It's a very simplistic worldview that's honestly a very dangerous mentality to have. Because it's very easy to just say, we're good, they're the bad people, bad stuff in the world's because of them, we're good, we're nice, all that. It's so easy to try to fall into that mentality of like, here are all the enemies of the world. That's them, we're all the good guys. And you really want to avoid that kind of thinking. That kind of thinking is easy and very tempting. And you shouldn't indulge that temptation.
Do you see what he did there?
Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on God's Not Dead. Please let me know what you think down in the comments section. Also, please give this video a like. It really helps out. And if you want to catch some more of my videos in the future, click that subscribe button. Until next time, take it easy.